Hello and welcome to Following on County Cricketer. I'm Jon Norman alongside Steve Harmison, George Dobell and Nick Friend for our weekly look back at all the county championship action and all the county cricket, anything that has occurred over the last week involving the counties, be it 50 over, 20 over or 4-day cricket. So where shall we start? We got to start with Somerset. What a win! Oh my days. George, I mean, I was fearing the worst and I don't even support Somerset. I mean, obviously you're neutral in all these matters, but boy, oh boy, when they were 5 down early on that chase, it looked like, it looked really bleak. And then up steps James Rue, supported by Craig Overton and Luke Gregory. And I mean, that was an absolute win for the ages, wasn't it?
It really was, and they really needed it. So we spoke last week about the lack of fight. And I think I said, I think they're really missing Craig Overton, his character, as much as his playing ability. And it was relevant that he was there at the end. I mean, he hit a 6 to win the game. But basically, that innings, he blocked the hell out of it. And clearly, the main hero of that performance is James Rue, who we should talk about, as a really talented... I mean, there's that crazy stat on him, isn't there? The youngest England batter to get 10 first-class hundreds since Compton. I mean, that's a great name. Dennis rather than Nick, I should say. And
Ben.
Yes, quite. But the Craig Overton fight and grit was really something that they'd missed as well. And that combination of sort of youthful flair and, I don't know, just determination was really something to see. And I felt like a crossroads moment in their season. Because if they lost that game, and they really probably should have lost it, it was trouble for them. Oh, by the way, very early in that game, you sent me a mocking WhatsApp on our group, didn't you, Normo?
No, I didn't, and I didn't really. So it wasn't really. It was in response to Nick's picture, wasn't it? Because Nick sent a tweet. No, it was somebody did. Somebody sent a picture.
It might have been me.
Or
I saw the picture of the pitch, didn't I?
Yeah, and it was referring to the fact that we'd said that, or rather, Harmy had said, so that he should have put it on a spinner. And then Nick sent this picture saying, "Well, it doesn't look like they've done that because it's a spinner scissors."
7 wickets each, didn't they? So
They had.
They did, and then I just replied, it's not going particularly well because Essex were like, what were they, 100 for 2 or something? So no, it wasn't a mocking in isolation message.
So there was a cheer around Taunton when Somerset won the toss because it was green as all hell, yeah. And it did nothing with the new ball. It did nothing. It didn't swing, it didn't seam, it wasn't, no nibble at all. And then later in the game, when Essex thought they had this trump card up their hand, the second new ball yesterday, it did nothing. So it was a really peculiar pitch in a way, but they knew exactly what they were doing, I think. The only thing is, there are still some issues with Somerset. If you think you're producing a Turner, why do you only play Leach? I mean, I know Vaughan was there, but I don't think he bowled. Or if he did, it wasn't very much.
to be fair, they obviously... I mean, unless they've redefined, all that we know about pitching that's played in the State of the Week, I don't think they produced that and went, to be a raging Turner. If you
Sure they did. Absolutely they did.
But as the game wore on rather than... no.
I think they knew exactly what they were getting. If you watch Jack Leach's first over of the match before lunch on the first day, the ball turned massively. And we know he's not a big turner of the ball, really. And particularly...
Can all these things be true, that they both knew it was a raging Turner and Archie Vaughan didn't bowl in the game, and then he bowled one spinner and Bashir's like...
No, it suggests muddled thinking, that's my point.
It suggests teams at the bottom of the table who are, like you say, muddled thinking. Tried.
Well, it's the thing I was going to say is it did look, before a ball being bowled, and almost like a panic pitch, but it was very much like a right, we've got to get a result, we've got to find a result.
So it absolutely looked like that, yeah. But if you ask them, what's going on with this pitch? Was it because I'm 80 yards away or whatever? Well, towards 45 yards away. I wondered whether it was damp and it was gripping because it was damp early on. So I asked that. They were like, "Oh no, They seem to expect it. So I just don't think they rate Bashir very much. And what's his bowling average for Somerset? I don't know. Look, he's out of contract at the end of the year, and I'd be surprised if he's there. But that's not what this is about today, is it? Should really be about Ruan Overton and Lewis Gregory as well. That was
who else, George? Rich. I mean, Pretorius. I mean, at 100 for 8, gets 20. What do you got? 23 of them at 20 balls. And I know. I mean, it's a massive difference going in 60 really in 100 without that and the momentum that goes with it. So you get all of a sudden you stand out of our 100 run lead. I mean, I've been in that position many times. If your number 10 and number 11 comes out of whack 20, the confidence that takes on the fielding side that goes. I mean, and then he went and got 3 wickets as well. So he played not massive parts, but a key part in keeping Somerset in the game.
No, he did. You're absolutely right to point that out. He had a very good game, and he's proving to be a sort of unglamorous but really useful signing. Well, and not just another thing about Somerset, for all their issues of late and all the frustrations and all the ones they've let go, that area does still produce players, and Rue is just the latest. And there is something really, really classy about James Rue. And it's kind of nice that, I mean, he's been in the Lions setup, but it's kind of nice that he's just been able to continue his development, maybe not been accelerated into international cricket too early. And I don't think there's any hurry. The age of 14-year-olds being stars, maybe 21 doesn't seem particularly young. Sure as hell does to me. Anyway, he did brilliantly, and it was a really big win, because without that, Somerset are looking at the next part of the season as a relegation fight, really, and particularly the fact that Yorkshire lost as well. They're breathing a wee bit easier.
And a potentially significant defeat for Essex as well, given the not just the injury to Jordan Cox, but they'll lose Sam Cook for a portion of summer now. They'll lose Cox for a portion of summer, and they are, don't think it's too controversial to say that, but their best batter and their best bowler, and they could be 20 odd points better off than they are going into that little passage. And I suppose this is the little bit with them, isn't it, where we talk about who's going to challenge at the top and who is closest to Surrey. Like, this is kind of the bit that I suppose as Surrey gets stronger and as Curtis Patterson comes in on a 3-game replacement, overseas deal to replace, essentially to sort of cover for Smith and Pope, then you've got Essex losing 2 major players, and and as slowly as Surrey appear to have started, for the closer challengers to lose players at the same time is kind of where the differences tend to come over the last couple of years, isn't it?
The lose Cox through injury or England, yeah. I don't think he won't miss a great deal with England, though, because I can't see him getting in that top 7. And the minute they've got it down from 13 to 12, he'll be the one that gets. I mean, he's going to spend some time on M1, M4, M6 sort of thing. But at the end of the day, Essex should still get their player back. Cook possibly be the one that misses a little bit more.
It didn't look very good, the Cox injury. I mean, he has been. I think he's a really, really talented player. And I think he could break into that side. I mean, you only need someone else to have, a back spasm or a broken finger in the nets, and he's in, isn't he? And he's definitely good enough to take his chance. And I think he'd bat wherever they wanted him to. So he's sort of that utility batter in a way. And I agree, he's not. He would probably be the one to make way, but it didn't look great.
He has developed a very unfortunate knack for getting called up to England squads or being around in the thinking, and then either suffering appendicitis or pulling a side or breaking a thumb or smashing his thumb up in the 100 a few years ago. He's chosen some. He's not chosen anything, obviously, but he's had some very unfortunate timing with those injuries. And speaking to someone who did once pull their side while batting, much the wonder of the physio, who said she'd never seen that before, and it bloody hurts. Jeez, I mean, he pulled my watching him do it, but I mean, shame for him because he batted really well once again, didn't he? So,
it's a fantastic player.
Essex play Yorkshire next, by the way. So it's essentially, if we're going to say that Worcestershire are going to struggle, and the table certainly suggests that, as do the results. I mean, it's 8th against 9th. It's so close. I mean, there's only 28 points between 1st and 9th, but that's going to start to split a little bit.
But for that was another great game because Warwickshire were down and out there as well. And it's, it doesn't look like a huge score, but Zen Malik on debut has taken Warwickshire over the line with 49, I think it was, not out.
Yeah.
That's a massive innings for him and them. On debut to play the match-winning innings, he's come into the side at the last minute. I think it was Sam Hain was ruled out, and Latham hasn't arrived, or was just about to arrive. So he wasn't expected to play, and then to pull off that under real pressure, and that's the Yorkshire side with Root and Brook in it. It's a big deal, that win. And again, Warwickshire breathe a lot. I mean, I think they're second. And honestly, I think most Warwickshire supporters would tell you they would be delighted to finish anywhere but in the bottom two this year.
The big blow for Yorkshire. I mean, that was nearly 800 international caps playing for Yorkshire. That's a massive blow. And I think it emphasises what I think Darren Goff and Otis Gibson had before that, and obviously their neighbours over at Lancashire, that if your bowling attack's very samey, and if you get on a flat one, then you have become a little bit toothless. And I look at the Yorkshire bowling attack and think, yeah, Cole's a good bowler at this time of the year, if we are normally in this time of the year where it's nipping about a bit. Sears is going to win you 1 and 4, 1 and 5, if that. Thompson, pace-wise, a little bit down, and flat pitches against good players in the first division. I think Yorkshire, they might have to go into the market and get another overseas fast bowler. That can make a big difference. Or they could be in trouble.
They also don't appear, really weirdly, don't appear to win their games when they've got Brook and Root, do they? They were winless through the first 7 games of last season when they had much more of those two than they had this year. And it was only when they went on the promotion run once they'd lost their world-class players. I don't think there's any more to that than coincidence. But I suppose the one thing it does do is it does kind of sort of disrupt rhythm of batters and brings guys in and out. And but yeah, it's a weird sort of quirk, that stat that whenever they've been stacked in the last couple of years, it strangely hasn't translated into results.
They both looked as if they could do with the game, to be fair. I mean, Root in the first innings was out in a way that would disappoint him, poking outside off stump. Second innings gets 90, looked better all the time. But did you see Joe Root's reaction when Harry Brook was out? Interesting. I mean, he was probably just frustrated at the fact that he'd been out. But interesting. It's worth looking at on NV Play, which is fantastic, isn't it?
Is it in second innings, is that? I imagine, because he only made 1 in the first innings.
Yeah, I presume so.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to check that out. We're going to talk more about all the county cricket. We're going to talk about Leicestershire and also talk about Durham. Plenty more to talk about here on Following On County Cricketer. You're watching or listening to Following On County Cricketer on talkSPORT 2 or via the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. Myself, Jon Norman, Harmy, Nick Friend and George Dobell. Let's continue our chat about that, the Division 1 fixtures, really. We haven't spoken much about Durham. Obviously started the season with a couple of painful defeats, but they're kind of easing their way back into it. They took on Hampshire at the weekend. A bit of a run fest, Harmy.
Yeah, it looked a flat one, didn't it? It looked a really docile wicket. Yeah, I mean, Graham Clark, what a great kid he is. I've just been talking about him on Following On. 2 winters ago, he was coaching Northumberland's EPP, which is like the 16 to 19 age group in the winter, trying to work out where he goes next. And, Ryan Campbell had a year at the club and transformed somebody who couldn't get a look in under Franklin, especially in 4-day cricket and red ball cricket. And now, seen him as a viable option at the bottom order because of the aggressive nature that he is. He bats number 7 because Ollie Robinson bats it sit in the top 6. And he wasn't going to play in this game. He played in the first game of the season because Durham had a lot of players missing. Always going to miss the second game onwards because he wasn't the household name. He takes second top scored, but took it on the chin. And Ben McKinney gets a back spasm and coming out of a lift and on the morning of the game at the Aegeus Bowl. And, Emilio Gray goes up to the top of the order. Clark comes in the middle of the order and whacks 160. So now, as nice as Graham Clark is, I would imagine if Ryan Campbell says you're not playing next week, I'd be booting the door down if it was me, but it's not me. It's all the nicest kids that plays first-class cricket. So I'm pleased for Clark. I think Durham have got a little bit of an issue in the numbers that they have I think they've got 7 or 8 batters to try and get into 6 places. It doesn't work. So I think they've got a lot of complications there. And I think their bowling stocks are, again, a little bit similar. Parkinson didn't start the season, Drizzle did. And Callum got 5 for against Yorkshire. We didn't get 5 against Yorkshire, 5 against somebody during the week in the second team. And he played in this game, and he just looked as though he's a little bit short. So, and we're not playing on the spicy wicket. So I think Durham are just find themselves a little bit short in quite a few departments. But Hampshire, it was a flat wicket, and neither team seemed to have the answer of probably the previous couple of years where they've had a bowler who can change the game out of nothing, and that was Hampshire's forte, and that's why they've been top of the league the last few years. And Durham have always had that X factor bowler. Potts didn't. He got 4 wickets, but he didn't look as though he was sort of at his top pace. And with no Bryden Cast, Durham look as though they've got a similar bowling attack, which is 82 mile an hour and below.
I'm just watching that video of Harry Brooks' dismissal. Sorry, Harmy. I just got a little bit distracted. Joe Root didn't look very happy.
He smashes his bat into the.
Yeah, it wasn't a great shot by Brooke, was it?
Decent ball, I think, wasn't it? Maybe.
Yeah, but it's a decent ball, but Brooke was playing all around it, wasn't he? No real football.
When he looks flat, I quite like this Booth. Yeah, I like it. He's got something about him. That's a lot. Last few weeks, he seems to have got better and better, which is good.
Heath Streak, yes, but you remind you, now I say it, think Heath Streak when you say it'd be slap, obviously yet, but there's something about the build. I think they maybe even went to the same school, and I just wonder whether he modelled himself on him. I don't know how much he'll play from now, because he's an overseas.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't qualify for England.
But I assume, though, doesn't he?
Right into the season, I think.
Yeah. I was looking up. I thought it was out earlier than that, but I might be wrong. It was out. You might be right. I like what it was in between the seasons. But
is it overseas, or is he just not qualified for England yet?
He's not qualified for England yet.
I just thought he's playing as a local, no?
No, he's not playing.
No, he's not playing as a local. He's playing as an overseas. But I think that at fair play to Warwickshire, we haven't got a great deal of money, so we'll take a punt on a young lad because we're not going to have an overseas. Potentially that in for much time.
We're hoping to have overseas. Yeah, I mean, Latham's meant to be there.
Only Latham's finger that's stopped him, isn't it?
Yeah. Hopefully he'll play next time. So, they've signed him with a view to being a long-term part of the plan. And he's doing really well. I mean, he's probably the quickest bowler on the staff.
I like him.
And he's got really good attitude as well. Yeah, there's a lot to like there.
Talking about fast bowlers, Sonny Baker was expensive, but there was another article pushing his candidature for an England call-up this year. Have you made Hampshire? They've kind of gone a little bit under the radar, it seems. Maybe that's just my perception this season. But as you're saying, it was a very flat track, wasn't it? And these are the games that you're going to have to win if you're in championship.
Ryan Campbell wasn't desperately impressed with it, was he? He was quite critical afterwards of the pitch, and they'd been used a couple of times before. And whenever I turned on, it felt like someone was getting cleaned up by one that had just sort of shot along the floor a bit, just sort of like back for length and was scuttling through. And to your first point, I think that's broadly where Hampshire were kind of hoping to be this season, sort of under the radar, fairly uneventful. They came in, were pretty realistic in pre-season, talking about this being a transition year, losing the runs of James Vince, Mohamed Abbas moving on as well. And that is, I guess, a bit like the sort of Essex point with Cook and Cox. You're losing arguably a best seamer and definitely best batter. So I think, to be honest, I've been pleasantly surprised because actually the bit they've done isn't that counties don't find that easy, sort of generally, is sacrificing a bit of control, which they did with Abbas for a couple of sort of young English quicks essentially, and it's often I always find often from the outside, and I'm sure Harmies see this much more than I have. Like you almost sort of like watching on, fairly intrigued to see how long teams will sort of hold their nerve for when they've got an English kid who probably sprays it a bit, who's probably a bit more expensive than the 75, 80 mile an hour, nibbling seamer. And how long they sort of stick with it before going, do you know what, actually that's not winning us games. So yeah, it's been, I know Jon Turner's been loaned out to Lancs, but to be honest, even that's a better alternative than, just him and Baker swapping one in, one out at Hampshire. I wish they'd both played together. That happened a bit in pre-season. I think it became clear that's not the way they're going to go, but I'd be pleasantly surprised. I thought they might struggle a bit, particularly without Vince's runs, but they've sort of found a way of making up for those so far, and they got a couple of early season wins as well, which is a big part of it. I thought, you kind of wonder, sorry, not a couple, but they got one early season win, they're still unbeaten, but you do kind of wonder if they'd lost that game against Yorkshire, whether you do go, actually, we need to sacrifice we're not going to score massive runs here. Do we sacrifice what Baker can give us and the excitement of that for someone a bit more control to sort of play their part in these low scoring games? And it's been, I don't know, I find it quite reassuring that they haven't done that. And they've, as you say, I think uneventful is the word. 1 win, 3 draws. I don't think anyone they only Worcester have got fewer batting points, I want to say, but they've, sort of just muddled along. Once again, they're another of those counties that wouldn't surprise you if in 3 or 4 weeks' time would fight you down sort of 7th, 8th, 9th. But as I say, I kind of think that's what they were pretty. I think they put their hands up for us in starting there and said this is the transition year. I don't think it would surprise me if they were in that sort of middle to lower half of the table come the end.
I thought Durham were a bit unlucky, really. I could see what they've obviously batted really long. Was it 150 overs or something? And then in reply, Hampshire was something like 260 for 6. Yeah, something like that. Anyway,
Ben Brown 160.
Yeah, Ben Brown and Felix Organ got runs, and it could have worked. It looks like it hasn't, but that could have, they could have maybe enforced the follow on, and
it seemed to get more docile as the game went on, didn't it?
Yeah, it can't it?
Yeah, which is a frustrating thing. Like you say about just a quick point on the fast ball, but you want to see, if they're going to play the pitches like that, they're going to possibly need Baker and Turner in the same side, because they're all the will in the world. And I look at even when you look at it now, what 2 teams have played 5 games, the rest have played 4. You get an idea and a sense of who's going to have a good season from an individual point of view, from a batting and bowling, most wickets, most runs. And you look at the top 10 of runs and wickets, normally you'd have 2 or 3 Hampshire players in each section over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. Like you mentioned, Nick, with the likes of Abbott, Abbas, Barker, Dawson, and then the likes of Vince and Gubbins and etc. And out of the top 10s in each one, I think Kyle Abbott's 9th in the bowling rankings, and nobody's in the top 10 of the batting. So it tells you that they're still probably trying to find their way of what the best formula is, probably without their best player in James Vince.
I think we should be careful about over-promoting the young players as well, because obviously it's exciting to see Sonny Baker and Jon Turner. I mean, their attributes are obvious. But I don't think it really helps young players when they're accelerated. Their promotion is accelerated. I mean, look at Shoaib, for example.
No, but I would say the one difference there is that the one positive to Baker is that he's playing. Definitely. That is the promotion to England. If that's who's on, I completely agree. Yeah, so I think in terms of
you just want them to be playing county cricket.
That was the thing. Like there are too many. I was speaking to Claude Henderson at Bristol last week when Leicestershire won there, and we were watching Josh Hull, and I kind of asked her. I said, like, he's on one of these ECB development contracts, but like in Hull's position, in Baker's position, Turner's position, actually, they don't need I get that everyone wants to keep them fit and everything, but actually, they need to. I think they've played something like, coming into the season, I think those 3 played something like 17 first-class games between them, I think, and Baker had played 1. Obviously, that was the Lions game over the winter. So as much as they need protecting from themselves in a sense, they do also need to be unleashed, or you end up in a situation where guys are playing for England
look, it's a balance.
Yeah, but what we're doing. It's clearly a balance, but we've all seen young fast bowlers broken by over bowling in county cricket. You know, we have.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'll go on my, just a little one on my experience coming in '98. You do the media day at the start of every year where you get your picture taken in whites and colours and X, Y, and Z. I remember David Boone saying to me when we had our pictures in blues, he went, "Go and give them to the cricket secretary." I was like, "What?" "Go and give them to the cricket secretary." He went, "You won't need these." He says, "You'll play 15, 16 first-class matches this season. You won't need your one-day cricket." He says, "I'd rather get somebody out of the leagues to play one-day cricket than play you." And he said that, and I was like, right, whatever. And he was true to his word. I think I played 14 out of missed 2 for under 19 games, but every single one. The fact that he bowled me 650 overs in 14 first-class matches wasn't really going down well in ECB Towers, but he learnt me how to bowl. But in the end, he basically said, "You're going to play every single game no matter how it goes, but I'm not going to sort of bow the mind by playing one-day cricket." And I felt as though that was great for me and in my development going forward.
Yeah, and it's great that Sonny Baker, Josh Harlan, John Turner are playing, but I'm not sure they're candidates, dare I say, for this winter. I don't know. Let's not hurry them and ruin them.
Hull might be.
You think Hull might be?
I think Hull might be. I think Baker.
Very young. I mean, look this week. He had a really good spell, didn't he? And you could see exactly what all the excitement's about.
But he is very raw. I was with Neil Colleen yesterday, and he basically said they took him out to try and build him up, as in physically, to try and make him more robust. And I think that's, and he says, in his eyes, he says, I hope we'll see a big difference in the way he comes back from the spell, but it's slowly but surely to get him into that position. I think, by speaking to one or two, I think Hull is the one that they're trying to sort of, or the world one eye on the winter if he develops over the course of this next 6 months in first class.
Let's talk about Leicestershire very shortly. No teams won more games than they have this season. We'll start with them coming up here on Falling on County Cricketer. This is Falling on County Cricketer on talkSPORT 2 and the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. Let's talk about Leicestershire then. Played 5, won 3. Sitting pretty at the top of Division 2 of the County Championship. I mean, where do you want to begin? Another good game. And, well, we talked about Josh Holt just before the end of the last break. I mean, let's just start with him because, you know, we talk about championing players and players coming through a little bit too early, of course, played towards the back end of last year. And, Homer, you think that they've got an eye on him for possibly making up the squad for the Ashes at the end of the year?
I think there is. I think there's quite a few on that list that are possibilities. I think talking to Killer, he more or less said there's going to take 2 squads out there. So there's going to be 28, 30 players from England in Australia leading into at least the first 3 test matches. And I would imagine Josh and the likes of Baker and one or two others, John Turner, will be involved in that. But no, like I said before the break, they've built him up physically to get him in a position to hopefully make him more robust. And we've seen elements last week, you know, when I mocked it when the setup of Cameron Green, which was 2 filthy deliveries down the leg side and an absolute beauty that swung back in and Cameron Green missed. The ball that he bowled to get Cameron Green out is a wicket-taking ball against an international player. Forget the rest for me. When I see things like that, that's something you can work on and something you can build forward. And that for me is something that I think England see. 6'8", 6'9". It's a long way to come down that from a release point. And I think England will be very, very happy if Josh Hall, by the end of the English first class summer, has got 35 wickets, an average of 27 to 30. I think then they'll see him going in the right direction, and the decisions they're made to get him fit and strong possibly work into their benefit come when the winter comes around. I think he might be one of the ones that I would want to push because he's a point of difference, and that from a bone attack point of view, if you've got somebody that's different, I think they're worth their weight in gold. So yes, it's a good week for Josh, and hopefully he continues going forward. But that Leicester side for me is a good side. Green, I like his qualities, both bat and ball. He's got ones consistently lower order, batting at 8 and number 9. Nick said a couple of weeks ago, I think Leicester are a team of all-rounders. But I think young Green has done well with the ball as well. So they're a good side, Leicester. All got a good formula and it's working.
Yeah, Richard Patel got 100, didn't he? And I think he's maybe, I mean, he has played Lions, hasn't he? But maybe not as far away. I mean, maybe you could just about see a pathway where he could play for England. I think did he get, Nick, you'll remember, did he get the quickest 100 last season? In the blast, admit.
Not I've been asked.
Oh, well, I might be wrong. But I think he got something like a 43 ball 100. I think it was last year. It might have been the year before, actually.
He's been on a Lions tour.
Yeah, but that was the year before.
Yeah, that was. I'm answering the question I hoped you were asking. You got a 41 ball 100 last summer, which was the joint fastest Leicestershire blast 100.
Right.
So, unless you were comparing it to Ben Rain's effort 6 years earlier.
No, I'd forgotten that. I know I read him. It's been a while before I guessed that name, to be honest. But that's what I mean. You know, they have got actually some good players.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's sustainable, but isn't it great that they're just relevant at the moment?
It might well be sustainable. They're to be 30 points clear at the start of May is a lot or not clear, and that's a third. That is, and they win games, and in Division 2, that is. It sounds really obvious to say, but you know, you can kind of draw your way to a pretty good season in Div 1, can't you? But the teams that get promoted from Division 2, if you think back to the last couple of years, Sussex won their home games. They're very good. They had 2 spinners. They had formula. Durham, swept everyone before them. The previous year, you don't get promoted by drawing 11, 10, 11 games, and to be 3 from 5 with the most bowling points to combat and most batting points it feels pretty sustainable. I don't think they'll lose their England, Rehan and Josh Hull I don't think they'll lose those guys this summer. And Ben Green, they've got the situation with him where they have him on loan for the championship and then he goes back to Somerset for the blast, and they're only getting stronger. Remember, Shah Massoud arrives in a couple of weeks' time, which changes their structure slightly because it probably means he'd come in for Logan Van Beek because their second rebel overseas. They'd go to 2 batters rather than a batter and a bowling all-rounder, but alongside Peter Hanscom, who's the captain. But yeah, they don't know. I think the thing about the all-rounders is that you become really hard to beat if you've got 11 batters, and it sounds, once again, really obvious thing to say, but yeah, I don't know. They give themselves a really good chance, particularly because a couple of teams that I think we probably all thought would challenge quite strongly. Lancs have been pretty miserable so far, and they're 4 draws from 4. They've come from behind in a couple of those. They've been close to winning a couple of those. They've nearly lost 1 or 2 of those, and then Kent, who played a brilliant game at Middlesex over the last week, but Kent are missing 10, 11, 12 first-team players. They've lost overseas already for the rest of the season. Jazz Singh, who'd started the season really well, just done his ankle, and his season's over as well. North End, who we wondered whether they might sort of fly a bit under Darren Lee in a second bottom. Yeah, so, as we said last week, you've got long odds on Leicester and Derby being top after 5 games, but that's kind of where we are.
Well, we should mention Ian Holland, shouldn't we? Because he's another wicket taker.
Another of that, he's an all-rounder. He's got a lovely gig, hasn't he? He bats in the top 3 and he takes the new ball.
And he really knows his game. I don't know how old he is. He'd be mid-30s, wouldn't he? He played for that man. Amazing story.
Yeah. The winner of Australian Cricket X Factor, wasn't he?
And American-born and all the rest of it.
Yes.
It's an interesting side in lots of different ways. But it's great that as I say, that they're relevant and they're part of the conversation because it hasn't been this way for a long time.
Let's talk about Middlesex. After all the years of watching them, Nick, I'm sure you were delighted not to be there.
There wasn't watching them. I mean, I was delighted on a personal level for Luke Holman because I've known Luke probably since he was, 5, and I've watched his professional career so far and just sat there and been like, I'd told everyone who'll listen that he's a batter who bowls leg spin, and it's always been that way around because I saw him average 85, 90 in Premier League club cricket as a 16-year-old, and he's very, very handy leggy, but he's a really quality batter, and I don't think he'd ever batted in their top 4, top 5 until this round, and he got 40 on the first season out of 240, and then 100, and actually 100 in the second season. Yeah, I'm chuffed for him because I suppose you can't tell people that you should be batting in the top 5 if you're not scoring runs at 8, but he went away this winter and was the top run scorer in Adelaide's grade competition, and came back and smashed a load of runs in the 2s as well, and got his go this week, only because Lewis Deploy got hit on the toe last week. So I suppose you've got to take a chance, haven't you? And a bit like, as Harmy said earlier with Graham Clark, like you can, all you can do is give the coach his decision to make when other guys come back in, and that's I kind of hope that not change his career, but sort of change, like sort of pushes him up towards the top 6 rather than being that 7 or 8 who bats. Because as I said, I've seen him play that not many times before, and I don't think anyone in professional cricket had done, which was cool. But chase 368 down was great finish. I was watching it. I was at Radlett watching the opening round of the women's T20 County Cup, which is sort of like the return of the CNG Trophy in a way. And I watched it all on the stream from the train station on the way home. But proper finished that, and I felt for Ken because they played brilliantly, particularly given what they're going through injury wise. You would have got long odds on that being their bowling attack at any point in the season. In Joel Richardson on loan from Essex. I think it was Matt Parkinson's first game this season thing in the first team. But they've lost Dudgeon. Yes, Jazz Singh, Matt Quinn's injured, still injured. Corey Flintoff wasn't deemed ready, loads wise, I think. Mikey Cohen's not fit yet. They signed him at the end of the previous season, and he's not played a game in a year and a half. And it just seems to happen to them every year, Kent. But no matter who coaches, but yeah, they gave it a proper go because they were awful on the first day, bowled out for 130, and to set 370 twings of Danny Budd Drummond's double hundreds was a proper effort. But I know they were going to win it a couple of times, but they just came up short.
Lancashire clinging on again. We were talking about them last week, weren't we? And we have done for quite a few years. I mean, they held on for a draw, but when you talk about Leicestershire not being able to maintain a challenge for promotion, I mean, we're kind of maybe expecting a little bit more from Lancashire this year. They haven't lost a game, but they haven't won a game either, harming it. But they came close to losing this one.
They did come close to losing this one, and I think the reason why they got relegated last year, George probably know more than me, but you've seen a lot more of it. But their overseas last year was probably non-existent. I think some of their decision making for their overseas, I think, is why they got relegated last year. This year, it seems as though their overseas seems to be the one that's keeping them in a position where they can still challenge. Because without Marcus Harris this year, I think Lancashire would have been, at the bottom with Glenmorgan. He really has sort of pulled the rabbit out of the hat on more than an occasion in these four games to keep Lancashire in the game. And I looked at that wicket and it was a flat one. Scores tell you. Well, I looked at Mood playing, I looked at Turner playing. I'm Hartley playing with a left arm bit of difference, and you're going, well, is it the wicket or have Lancashire not got are they not bowling optimum speeds? I didn't see the speeds, but if you think that Turner was bowling on it, Mahmood was bowling on it, who can bowl with reverse swing and obviously with heat as well. Lancashire need to find a formula from a surface point of view that is going to suit them, because if not, a league drawing enough games like this can like the challenge to get out of the second division, and a team, a club, and the size of the club that Lancashire is. They should be in the first division, and that's on obviously Matt Benke. One did funny side of it. I don't know if anybody's seen. He's probably going to get into trouble. We've just had a laugh on it on the final word, but Tom Bailey's mobile phone falling out of his pocket was probably the most entertaining that wicket was on day 4 when his mobile phone hit it. Will he be in trouble there? Is it first class cricket? Do they still have the rules are similar to
like that to international cricket? I don't think that should have happened. But
you watch a lot of club cricket. I think club cricket probably shouldn't happen. Never mind first class cricket.
I did wonder whether Keaton Jennings looked around at times and wondered whether he might quite like Matt Parkinson to call on. You reap sometimes the consequence of decisions you make a couple of years down the track, don't you? And it's all very, the pitch no doubt is flat, but I think if it hadn't been for their overseas player, Hannon got a 50, but basically they were struggling to reach 40. If pitches are really flat for your bowlers, you would like to think your batters would find it flat as well.
Is this somewhere Bishop lands? Is it out of contract at Somerset? Is it a club that it turns? It normally bounces. It normally turns at Old Trafford. You can see why it would suit it. Path. Yeah. Is it a career path move where you think, actually, this could be the best move for Shaw Bashir?
Interesting.
Let's finish up then. Derbyshire and Glamorgan fought out quite an entertaining draw.
All have gone, didn't it?
It did
It's
actually.
really wet. Then I remembered bank holiday trains to Cardiff on a Monday morning were going to be an experience.
Horrendous. Have you done all 18 yet, Nick?
I was good at night.
Well, no, I've got 24 days to go.
Which haven't you done? Which have you?
I'm starting to worry it could be mildly forlorn. But I also, do you know what? I'd hate to fail. And like, this was never, I didn't set out to do this, but it's such like a pound shop version of the 92 that to fail would be quite dismal, I think. So anyway,
Which are the ones that you've neglected?
I'm looking at all the names now.
This is great. This is great.
This is where I find out that I've done it. Yorkshire, but I'm seeing Yorkshire. I've got that in the diary. Essex, likewise. Northants, Sussex. Warwickshire.
There's 5 of them. We saw me dead. Not that many.
That's basically good to see this all under control. It's full on control.
John's only seen Surrey, which is odd because they always play another side. He's only seen Surrey.
Yeah. I turn away. I basically watch the bowler run up, and as soon as he delivers the ball, I look away.
You blink. You get through the season by blinking.
Yeah.
You tell listeners you are joking. It's actually, John sends me text, don't you? In fact, I mocked you yesterday. Yeah, I'm terribly invested in that Somerset performance. I was living every ball. And the second a result has happened, you're clearly watching, aren't you?
Yes, yeah.
Your text immediately. You feel, even though you were meant to be spending the weekend climbing Snowdon.
I know. I'd get momentary breaks in the clouds, or maybe I'd get to the top of a ridge, and my phone network would spark into life, and the first thing I'd do was just check the count
To see whether Surrey have signed a new player.
So, yeah.
Didn't need to check. Churchy messaged me as soon as that one came through. We're going to talk about the England squad and plenty more, and the women's cricket as well. That's where Nick was this week. You are following us here on Following On County Cricketer. This is Following On County Cricketer. Okay, guys, let's talk about the England squad. It was announced this week. The Zimbabwe Test match is what? It's in about 2 weeks' time, isn't it? And so it means that we're not going to see the likes of Joe Root and Harry Brook play for their counties again, and all those others that kind of pop their head up momentarily. First off, well, let's start with you, Harmy. Your thoughts on the squad named and the makeup of the side as you see it.
No surprise. Sorry. At all. No shocks to the system where you think, or what people might have said, playing Zimbabwe might play the younger side, giving somebody a chance, but I don't think England could afford that, even though they've got the second in the rankings. I don't think they can afford that with what they've got coming up. They need to start meaningful. They need to start well on the front foot. On the side, I think if it's India first Test match, I'm putting 4 seamers. As much as I want to see how Bashir would go, I wouldn't be able to play not with what's coming in. He's a different bowler, yes, when Ben Stokes is at mid on and mid off. But I don't think England could have afforded going in. But with playing Zimbabwe, it gives him a chance to get 25 to 40 overs under his belt with Ben Stokes and hopefully pick up a few wickets. and give him some confidence going forward and giving him a spin option, because they're going to continue with him along with the likes of Zach Crawley and Ollie Pope. And the same with the bowling unit. I'm looking at this and going, you've got to play Tone. He's your point of difference. Atkinson, after last year, has to bat for last summer and the last winter, has to play. And then again, if it was India, I'd probably say we know what Potts can do, so I'd stick with Potts. But I think, unfortunately, for Matt Potts, I think you have to have a look at Sam Cook. And so Potts, for me, Potts and Cox would miss out of the 13 that England have picked. And I said on following on about half an hour ago with Neil Manthorp, and it's not right, this, but it will happen. Sam Cook will be judged probably quicker than any other of the younger, cooler bowlers that England have got. All the England bowlers that coming through the pathway and the system and everything that come will be given a chance to, make a mistake, get injured, and still be quite relevant. I think, unfortunately for Sam Cook, a lot of people will talk about his pace. A lot of people will talk, can he bowl on international pitches? Can he play against international players? And he'll be judged very quickly. So I hope for Sam Cook's sake, he does start well, because he might be one of these lucky ones that plays 2 test matches, gets 4 to 8 test match wickets. And unfortunately, people think, he's not quick enough, he's not good enough to get top players out and all that.
The James Kirtley or Saggers or whatever of his day. The James Kirtley or the Saggers or...
Yeah, Saggers, Ed Giddens, James Kirtley, all these. I hope Cook's not like that. I think he's got more skills than that. But unfortunately for Sam, he's got to hit the ground running, because you'll get judged very quickly.
He does keep proving people wrong, doesn't it? Whether it's been with the Kookaburra ball or with the white ball or bowling in Australia. I hope so too.
You know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? This is
sad. Yeah,
a lot happens in this country, and I hope it does. I mean, maybe not that doesn't, but it will.
No, you're dead right, because, for example, they say he's always been part of their thoughts, but they've got 29 contracted players, and he's not one of them. So it doesn't sound that much if he's one of them that have been massively in their thoughts. So he's earned it the hard way, completely opposite to, say, Shoaib. Not saying either's particularly right or wrong. Look, just onto the squad properly, Normo. So my instinctive reaction was very different from my considered reaction. The instinctive reaction is, gee, it's hard to get dropped. I mean, you wonder what a couple of those fellas have to do. But actually, keep your eye on the prize. Their priority is winning in Australia in particular. And they're picking players they think they can do that. And they think that Shoaib and Crawley in particular have those skills. And on that logic, I get it. It's not necessarily saying it's what I'd have done, but I get it. It's consistent and there is some logic there. So I've got no massive criticism.
Yeah, you do with that. I think, well, the Bashir one may be like, I mean, the Bashir one, I find that I'd split the Crawley and Bashir decisions differently. Like, it almost confuses me more. It confuses me more now when people are surprised that Crawley's in the squad. Like, he's their guy. He is not just their guy, but he's been their guy for Australia for so long. Since he was pulling Stark in front of the square at Sydney in the last Ashes series, they fancied him for that. He then belted him at times in the had a really good Ashes series in 23. Like, Zach Crawley is going to open the bat in Australia unless he breaks a finger or something. Like, we've all known that for such a long time, and he is also probably he's also, I'd say, the most at risk if things go wrong for the team and the setup changes after that series, because he is their guy and he was their guy for that purpose. So I almost find it almost like faux outrage at this point when people lose their mind at Crawley's session, because of course he's like, we know he's going to play. Bashir one I find slightly different, because I just don't. He's not. There's no evidence that he's provided no evidence the last year that he's going to go out to Australia and be the bowler he wanted to be out there. He went on the Lions tour and he got belted. He came back and he got whacked by Cardiff University, and he went on Lincoln Morgan to 2 wickets. Like, there was no also fingerspin in Australia, doesn't have a great track record anyway. So, I think they're slightly different. I understand. I understand, I suppose, the loyalty thing and then the desire to look after someone of his experience and his age, which was which they very much put on him. He didn't select himself for India. I did think they might have gone a different way with the spinner, but for the rest of the squad, I think because of what they've got coming up, I don't think I expect them to bring someone in who would suddenly put pressure on someone. You know, if you bring McKinney in now, it puts pressure on Crawley, for example, and I think the one thing they've been quite consistent with over quite a long period of time is they don't like bringing a spare player who might immediately put a player in front of them at immediate risk, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So just what we do is about confidence and building guys up and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I don't expect anything to change particularly before Australia, because that is where all roads lead, right?
Yeah, I was just about to say that, Nick, about in your asking your opinions on, both your opinions on where England would have gone if Jacob Bethel had been there. Because obviously Cox is the spare player, but I would imagine Bethel would have been the other Cox selection from a 13 point of view. England, in my list here, you've got Wilkes, Archer, Carson, possibly Wood. I'm thinking for the next 10 test matches after this one. Them with Bethel, with this 13, there's probably going to be a nucleus of England's group. You probably stick Leach in there if somebody happened to show up a shirt, because he'd be the next spinner off the right. So where does Bethel fit into this?
Okay, I've got a theory, and I should say this isn't from a source, so I haven't been told this or anything. Bethel's happy at the IPL at the moment, yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, he's hanging out with really great players. He's opening the batting with Virat Kohli, for God's sake. No doubt he's learning masses and having brilliant experiences. But is he happy because he's also being told he's in the thoughts and he's probably going to play against India? That would be my hypothesis. That would be my theory, that he's in.
Yeah, I go with that, George. I think he is in. And
You'd stress, I haven't been told that. I don't think he does.
no, I haven't been told that either, but I read that exactly the same. I think that Jordan Cox was being brought in New Zealand. They wanted to have a look at him ahead of Ollie Pope. And then, of course, Pope played and took the gloves and actually played pretty well in New Zealand. I think people forget, if it wasn't for his innings alongside Harry Brook in Christchurch and Wellington, could have been a different result. I like Pope at 6, whether he's keeping the gloves or not. I'm not sure he's ever really convinced at 3. There are some people who think he's doing just fine. But I think Bethel's in, and I think Smith's in. And I think Pope may well be out.
The challenge they've got, of course, is that, rewind by a year to when, was it a year? 2 years. When am I going mad at? The Ireland test, 2 years ago. Pope filled his boots, and that one-off test does give everyone a chance, and whether it's against Zimbabwe, whether it's against Australia or whoever, if you've got one-off test match and you're selected in it, you should go and get a double 100. Like, good luck dropping that guy for, whoever it's against, for the next test, 6-8 weeks down the line, so, or whatever the first India test is, so not 6-8 weeks. So yeah, that is the risk with it. It's all very well to say to Jacob Bethel, to say to anyone, you'll be in for this one. But at any level of cricket and at any level of sport, if you say, as soon as you start guaranteeing people selection for anything, a couple of games down the line, you leave yourself very open to snookers, don't you?
Mm.
Yeah, you are right. If Pope scores a double 100 against Zimbabwe, then that's going to create a problem.
Hold on, get in. He only gets in for one person. Crawley's going nowhere, and he doesn't bat 4 to 7. So it's only one place that Jacob Bethel can fit in. I mean, Root Brook Stokes is going nowhere. The one thing now England probably got, if something happens to Ben, is they've got a viable option as a captain in Harry, which I didn't think they've had last 18 months. But now he's white ball captain. I think with Pope becomes even more vulnerable. But if Ollie Pope, who is very, very good at these games, goes and bangs runs, then it'd be very, very difficult, like Nick said, to drop him.
It's also a huge ask. I mean, I know we're all kind of like sold on this high ceiling of Jacob Bethel, and the spin helps as well. But batting at 3, I'm surprised that nobody's really pushed forward the notion that maybe Jamie Smith should bat 3 and the gloves go elsewhere.
That's it wouldn't, if I was to bet on what will happen in English Test cricket in 10 years' time, I think that feels likelier than Smith batting 7 as the keeper, particularly once you move on from Root and Stokes. Like, you're looking at, you're going to be asking who the next best batter in the country, and Smith may well be among those. And also, yeah, and it's another way. And of course, it's another long-term. It's another long-term spot for Ollie Pope, isn't it? Like, that way, that is the the other way, of course, Bethel gets in is the way he got in over the winter, which is that something happens to Jamie Smith and Ollie Pope's keeping wicket, and therefore Pope drops to 6, 7, and then there is a spot at 3 for Bethel, or Pope bats at 3 and with the gloves. I don't know if they want to do that. I mean, not many have done that ever, really. But I can see a world where Smith is batting the top 5 without the gloves in 2 or 3 years' time. Nothing against his keeping. I just think he's that good.
He is that good, and there's a lot of keepers.
Yeah, but the thing is that if Smith comes in as a keeper, Smith loses the gloves. And the guy who you want to drop to get Bethel in is actually now got to keep wicket, and that's Ollie Pope. So you start...
Not an England thing, just like a down-the-now deal where Smith plays, a bit like the Johnny Bairstow sort of career axis in a way. That there'll be times when he's got the gloves and times when he hasn't got the gloves.
Also, it is crazy that England have got this guy, Ollie Pope, who has batted at 3. He's been captain. He's vice-captain or was vice-captain. He can bat at 6 and he can keep. I mean, that's the kind of guy you want in and around the squad, isn't it? Because if there's an injury, pretty much anywhere, to the captain, your number 6, 7 or 3, you've got someone who can come in and do it.
That was literally a New Zealand series, wasn't it? He wasn't meant to keep in New Zealand. It was meant to be Jordan Cox. And then Harry Robinson had his passport to hand when he got picked up. When he got picked, Pope might not have played because it might well... Or sorry, Pope might well not have kept, and Bethel might not have played because it might well have gone Pope at 3 and Robinson at 7. So, absolutely, he's the man for all seasons. I don't think you're going to move him on from the squad at all anytime soon because he does offer so much in so many areas. But he's, as Army says, obviously the most vulnerable at the moment because his is Bethel's spot and Bethel's is his spot. So something's going to have to give at some point.
Is it Paul Warhurst or Dion Dublin of his time? There's a good timely reference for you there, Norma.
Yeah, I love the bit of Dion Dublin. Guys, shall we wrap things up with Rotor Watch? George, where are you going to be?
I'm going to try and do more, and I was hoping that we were going to mention the Women's One Day Cup. I was just going to say, watch out.
I promised we would, so yes, do so.
I was just going to say, watch out for Davida Perrin, because I know that she's young and she's in development, but she can play, and Izzy Wong is bowling better.
No, young as well. She's 18. It's crazy.
And she looks even younger. Or maybe I'm just getting old. But
I watched her get 70 odd on whichever day it was, Sunday, Beckenham, and she was also
she got 50 the game before as well. She's playing well, and Izzy Wong is bowling really well. Needs to be playing.
Myself and Nick were at the launch of the T20 World Cup, the Women's T20 World Cup in June next year. I mean, England. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, it was. We'll talk about this another time, actually, because it was actually fascinating to be there, Nick. I don't know if you feel the same.
It was the unlikely tie-up I didn't know I needed. Malala Yousafzai, Ellie Kildan, Vanessa Williams from Desperate Housewives.
Yeah,
And it was really interesting morning, and we got to speak to afterwards, but I think I find most interesting of these, as Lottie correctly put, is you look onto your World Cup and everyone's asking questions about this World Cup, and there's another World Cup before then.
And the schedule hasn't even been announced for it. I mean, this is a crazy thing, isn't it? We're so far ahead in terms of planning for such things in England, and then in India, they'll probably announce it a week before the tournament starts.
Massive. There's a lot riding on that T20 World Cup. They're not just in terms of legacies and chance to win everything, but they've gone all in on the big men's test grounds. It's a great confidence. It's a great show of confidence in the women's game, but it is also, I suppose, a great show of confidence in the ability of marketing teams to sell these grounds out. Because what the women's game has had for a very long time is a very good set of loyal venues that have become very good at selling out their grounds. And as any player, male or female, will tell you, given the choice of playing in front of 4,000, let's say, at Old Trafford or 4,000 at Chelmsford, you would rather play in front of 4,000 at Chelmsford. because one is going to be full and one is going to be empty. So there's pressure on to get that right. I hope they tap into the various communities. They're enormous. It's not just England playing. England, if they win that World Cup, will play 7 games out of 30 plus, and there are 25 plus games there that have to be really well marketed, really well sold. Because what the game does not need is a tournament that's sold on the premise of, look at us, we're doing it in big grounds, and then they're all empty. Isabel Wilds, who I really do trust, and she's very, very good. She said that their goal is Beth said that their goal is to be the most watched women's cricket event of all time, which means, I can't remember quite, I think it's 250,000, isn't it? And that means going past the T20 World Cup in Australia in 2020 when 86,000 were at the final alone. So that's a really good target to aim for, because that averages out at the very least 9,000 or so a game. And actually, also it was a really significant, I think, boost for Bristol and for Gloucestershire. They're the only non-hundreds, non-men's test ground included. So they've been included expensive. There's no game in Wales. There's no Trent Bridge aren't included. Taunton, Chelmsford, Hove. A lot of grounds have done an awful lot for the women's game, as Bristol have done. Have missed out. So there is a lot of responsibility on the wider game to make sure that this is not done just to say, look, we're at the big grounds. That only works if there are people there.
And it also starts at the same time as the Football World Cup, which of course will be on terrestrial TV.
The men's World
Cup. Men's World Cup. Yeah, so it's going to be a challenge. Guys, let's end things here. We will talk about that maybe next week, because there's loads that came from it that was really, really interesting. I thought the way they went about it was fascinating as well. So, George, you where did you say you were going to be? Sorry,
I can't even remember. I think I'm watching your boys again, just to keep you up to date with how they're doing.
Oh,
you are, George. Days 1 and 4 of Warwickshire.
So that must mean I'm doing something else in between. But anyway, we'll come back to that.
Harmy, what are you doing?
I don't nothing really. I don't think Durham haven't got a game, so
Good. Jolly,
no, it's coming up to T20 time, so he's playing more white shorter format stuff, and did sit through a freezing day. It was back to the reminiscent of Durham's early days. We were at Darlington on Sunday watching 2 T20 games, and it was absolutely Baltic. So
lovely.
Yeah, I'm sick of that now.
George, I might see you on Friday because I'm heading up to Edgbaston. I'm not sure who Warwickshire are playing, but it just so happened I do need.
Well, if you are too busy in the executive boxes where you like to hang out these days.
Well, George, I'll see you on Friday. Nick, I'll see you when I see you. Harmy, I'll see you when I see you. Thanks for watching or listening to Following On County Cricketer.